Mr. Perkins, tell me how you're doing right now.
Oh, I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine, man. It's like, such a big fan of yours. I've seen your specials. I also your special Take Note. I saw it on Netflix. It's currently on Amazon Prime right now, and had the chance to rewatch it. And it's very great piece of work. I've also seen your 47 minute set on Dry Bar, which
Oh, that's what's up.
so
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of yours, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come on here on Against the Family.
Oh man, thank you. Thank you for having me. Yeah, that's what's up. It's like we live in a new world. So like my goal is that some people that I hit up, I don't hit up a lot of people, but every now and then you hit up someone and you want them to get back to you, right? So then you have to try to get back to other people as well. So um yeah, so I appreciate you, and I know you hit me a few times. I didn't see that first, but yeah, I appreciate that. So I'm happy to be
Yeah,
here.
and I feel a little bad. I wish I could give you like a bigger intro, but I stink at intros. We go back all
Uh-huh.
27 past episodes. I just think I want to give you that intro. Like you've seen him on Conan, you've seen him on Late Night with Stephen Colbert, and like I knew if I was gonna mess that up. And
Nah, it's so good, so good.
and to do
The
that, and
main
to
thing is you plugged my main things though, so that's what's up. So people watching can go and check those out.
Yeah, the Dry Bar is the Dry Bar comedy video. It's on YouTube, so that's accessible to everyone. Uh,
Right, exactly.
and I wanted to give you a big intro like that, but it kind of is like gave me a weird feeling because I don't know if you know, but you're kind of Wikipedia famous already. So
Oh, is that right?
yeah, so like,
How's
but
that?
But I feel like I want to like give this dude. I want to give this dude a proper intro, but like I feel like if I do any more research, it'll come off as kind of creepy,
Oh, I see, I see. No, no,
because
no. It's all good. I
you
mean,
know
it's
that
like what you say?
that personal life part on Wikipedia comes on. Like I'm not gonna like get too creepy
Right, right.
about it. Like
I
I
feel
don't
you.
want to bring up your childhood stories while we're on here.
I gotta check it out because the crazy thing is I try to be not too, you know, not too angry or just whatever about it. It is what it is what it is. But there's another comic with my name. So
I've
he's
actually seen him. He was on Comedy Central.
yeah, he spells this differently, but they say it the same. And so I want to double check because every now and then, even when you hit me up, I was like, and then when you start talking, obviously you know who I am, and you're trying to hit up me. But sometimes people tag me on his things, and it's a little bit annoying. I should have dealt with it when I first heard about him. Like maybe called him, but I felt like I shouldn't have had to because I was here first. But it's his name, I guess. So what can I do?
Yeah, and yeah, we're talking about the gay comedian from who had his set on Comedy Central, right?
Yeah, I think he's from Chicago. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, uh yeah, that's good. What else did I wanted to say? Oh yeah, so of course, like bringing up, I didn't want to do the look too far into you. I just like wanted to know, what most people have seen you in. So then I like to like let you take over. Like when I tell you, if I ask you, like how you get started doing comedy, because that's we all know like Dave Chappelle's story. He's been doing comedy since he was 14. People, So I like to give it to you. Like you tell us how you got started in the comedy scene. Also help me, someone who's young, trying to start doing stand up.
Okay, yeah. For me, um, when I was in college and back in New York, I went to a school called New York Institute of Technology, and I don't know. I guess I just even in high school, I wasn't the class clown. Let's start there. Most comics aren't that like gregarious. I was funny though, but I wasn't like at the forefront of everything. But in college, I guess I started to like host events at my school. Just I would just host and I'd crack jokes in between. And then what happened was a friend of mine we went away for summer break and we came back, and a friend of mine told me he started doing stand up, and I was like, "Word, that's crazy!" And I didn't even know how to do it. I love stand up, but I didn't know how to do it. And then the next summer, I was that was at there's a thing called the Black Business Expo. I don't know if it's still around, but back then it was like showcase Black businesses, try to encourage people to spend within the community. And in New York, there's a convention center, and so there was a Black Business Expo. So I went there, and one of the businesses that was there was a comedy club, the Uptown Comedy Club. So at that point, I believe I was already writing jokes, my little jokes, and then I went to their table and asked them a few questions about, because they were there to try to get people to come see the show, but I had questions about being a comic, and they were really nice. They were great people. They said
And how old were you at the time?
I was in my 20s, so I don't know, 22, 23, something like that. Maybe 20 in between, maybe 21. And then I went to the table, and they said, "We'll come here on Wednesdays. On Wednesday, it was in Harlem, so they come into Harlem on Wednesdays. They have a showcase. They were nice enough to have not a showcase, a workshop. So I went to so I think my whole thing was the next week I went to see a comedy show, my first comedy show ever in the city in Manhattan. I'm from Brooklyn. It was at the Improv, so I went to see that show. Then I went to another show at the Uptown Comedy Club. Then I went to the workshop, and they just sort of explained things. And then, like within 2 weeks, I think the following Sunday, I was on the show. They have a thing called the New Jack segment, and it's
Mm.
really trial by fire. So they bring you out, and they say at the end, you do like 4 or 5 minutes, and they say, "Can you stay?" And then they say yes or no. You can always come back though, but the crowd gets to boo you if they don't like. It's not like the Apollo. Just at the end, they say, "Was it good? Can he stay?" And so I did well my first time. You'll find most comics do well their first time, most of the time, because it's just pure adrenaline. And then the second time I bombed, and then that's when you bomb, that's almost when you become a comic. When you first bomb and then you come back, that's when you start building up that tough skin. So then from there, I just kept doing it. I didn't really start right away though, because I went back to school, and so like I did it for a summer, went back to school, hosted a few things, but I wasn't doing it every day. Then I went upstate New York to do a co-op. I had a job at General Electric. And then when I finally graduated college is when I really started, and I moved to Boston. That's when I really started doing it like 3 or 4 times a week.
Oh, that's yeah. You look at many people who many comedians, and their story always starts like at college, and it's
Yeah,
usually at that point is like our first sense of freedom when we move out of our parents' house. Because, truth be told, no parent wants to hear that their child wants to become a comedian. It's uh,
right.
it's like it comes to like it aligns with like I don't know, stripper and drug dealer for some reason because it's because it's there's no like corporate ladder. There's no way you could work your way up. It's either you work at it to the point where you either consistently good at it, or you work at it where like the rock star lifestyle. You blow up from you blow up and you exposed to all this fame. Like I think that's what happened to like these there's like these young like because you go on social media now you see all these guys all these people doing skits and become just go viral and they become
Right,
got they go from having like 1,000 followers one day to like 3 million the next uh over like their doing skits and everything like haha Davis, I think Desi Banks, who
right,
are
right.
actually funny, so actually pretty funny. So and yeah you
Yeah, it's. Well, I'm sorry. What you say?
now go ahead.
It's like a different animal altogether. It's like you know, like I'm playing catch up in that space. Like to do something short, funny, viral. It's just another form of storytelling. So I can't hate on it. But a lot of like little sketches or like they're really like street jokes that like I've been telling for years and years and years. You know, not that I wrote, but just jokes that you hear people say in bars, and people are kind of now acting those jokes out, which is brilliant. Um, and I think it's weird because sometimes people get that fame and then they don't have anything to follow it up with, you know. Um, I would say in terms of what you said about parents, that's absolutely true. The good thing for me though, being from Brooklyn and the era I'm from, like it was weird. My mom had high expectations for me, but at the same time, she just didn't want me to get in trouble. You know what I mean? So it is kind of weird when you go to college and then after college, you know, you finish and then you start doing comedy. They're like, but I kind of like split the difference because I did get a job out of school and I worked. So that way, like it felt like I was doing what I was supposed to do. But I'm from a place where most people don't, at the time at least, most people don't go to college. A lot of people don't finish high school. So in that sense, once I finished high school, like my job was done, kind of thing. And I think you're right though about the corporate thing because there's a joke I always think of that people say. Um, it's to sort of like it's to sort of showcase what you were saying. I don't know if you ever heard this, but what do you call a doctor? Excuse me, I messed up the joke already. But it's just what do you call a person who finishes at the absolute last in his medical school class? Like he finishes at the bottom of his medical school class. You know what you call him? You call him
Doctor.
doctor, right? Exactly. So in comedy, it's like there's no middle class, right? So there's no like, like you said, you're either like people think you're either like boom, you're Kevin Hart, or you're struggling, But the reality is not that. The reality is that I know guys who are not famous comedians, especially guys I knew in Boston when I used to live there. I'm from Brooklyn, but I lived in Boston for like 5 years, 4 or 5 years. I know guys who they've never been on TV, okay? Never have any kind of credit like that. But just doing stand up, they've made enough money to like buy a house and put 2 kids through college. So like that's what people do when they work at IBM or Xerox, right? They buy a house, they put 2 kids through college. So I think people don't realize there's a quote unquote middle class of comedy because you can do corporates, you can do cruise ships, you can do clubs. And the good thing about comedy is once you get it going, it makes you you're running a small business, right? So you become a lot better at money and spending money because when you work a regular job, this check is coming every week and you kind of like start spending money before you have it. But as a comic, you don't spend money before you have it. In fact, you're always planning for like, okay, what if 6 months from now it dries up? I don't get any gigs. So you learn how to budget your money a lot better. I think I'm much better at money because of stand up, or better with money, I should say.
So like for up and coming comedians, like we're in a different era because I don't know what era that was when you were coming up. Whether it was the like late '90s or early 2000s, but what would you say like
Yeah,
is the
yeah,
biggest
90s.
challenge? Like what would you say is the biggest challenge for like young comedians to come up these days?
You know what's crazy? It's like what you're doing is great. And I don't know if you've hit the stage yet, but like connecting, networking, I think the I'm lucky because I'm in, right? And comedically. So enough people know me. I have enough credits. I can use those credits to go overseas, which I do a lot. Not this year, obviously. But I think for newer comics, it's like, well, it's two things I would say. One, the game is more based on marketing than and self promotion than it is on, you know, than it is on being funny and writing jokes. But I would say to a new comic, don't let that fool you. Like, still focus on your jokes and your writing. It's like a sports analogy where, like, if you're a great athlete or you're really fast, you're really strong, you jump really high, you still should learn the fundamentals of whatever sport you're playing, you know? And because someone who's not as gifted as you can always outdo you if they know the fundamentals.
Oh yeah, most
So
definitely.
I think comics today, newer comics starting, for instance, like a comic will do their first set ever. Like I told you, my first set was in Harlem. They'll do their first set and then put it on YouTube. And like from someone from my era, I'm like, how can you put your first set? No one's ready to see that yet. That's
Mm.
not what you're going to be, unless you're trying to show people the whole journey. So in a way it's brilliant, in a way it's not. So it's like there's no rules, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I would say get good first, because a lot of people want to get like, they do comedy one time, they have a headshot, they have a business card, and the old head in me is
And
like, no, no, no. But they're not wrong either,
and
because that's what the game is now.
I do want to bring up like
Yes,
I watch a lot of what they consider young comedians are guys like 35, 36 years old. Like
absolutely.
Andrew Schultz, who's very hilarious. Chris Stefano.
Yeah,
These
yeah,
guys those guys are considered young guys coming up, and they've probably been doing stand up since they were like 19, 18, something like that.
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I don't think I can say I'm a young guy now, but I was a young guy for like almost 20 years.
But you could
You know
say
what I mean?
you hit your prime. You could say you hit your prime
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
because like
And so, I'm sorry.
because
Go ahead.
Bill Burr is like 50 51 I think 50 some
Yeah,
years
yeah,
old, and he just hit his prime doing
yeah.
arenas, and he just had like his best special yet, Paper Tiger, on Netflix.
Right. And Bill's a friend of mine. He's a guy that it's weird because in comedy he's like one class above me in terms of time. He like when he was a junior, I was a freshman, kind of, because I lived in Boston. He's from Boston, and yeah, it's amazing what he's done. And but that's the thing with stand up. It's like, you probably heard this before too. Like there's this thing about this Shogun, or this like sort of I think Shogun, or you know ninja type thing, and he's a martial artist. He wants to be, he's talking to his teacher, and he says how long will it take me to become great, you know and then the teacher said, oh, it'll take you 10 years, it'll take you 10 years to become great. And he said, no, you don't get it. I'm going to like focus on this every day. I'm going to put everything I have into it. And the teacher said, well, in that case, it'll take you 20. And I think people don't understand that. Like, that's why there's these two tracks. There's the self promotion, personality, get a lot of fans, and that's great. But then there's a like, get really extremely good at stand up. And that's what, like, Bill Burr, that's the track he was on. But that's a really long, long, long track, because stand up is weird. Like, it's like you're always getting better, but if someone sees you, they might think you're better at year 5 than you were at year 10. Now, in reality, you're going to be better at year 10 than you are at year 5. But just because you're always changing and everything is always changing, you might actually be doing better at year 5. You might be getting better laughs 5 years in than 10 years in. But then, like 20 years in, you're unstoppable. You know what I mean? But in that time, it goes up and down. And I think it's really hard, I think, for comics starting now, because you have to think of both things. You have to think of being a brand, managing your brand, but also being funny and good, and your voice and writing jokes.
Yeah, but all right, and another thing is like when it comes to like being edgy in comedy, I don't know if you consider I don't know if you consider yourself this, but I consider you a clean comic. There's a if there's
Right, right,
a spectrum of edgy, I put you on like one end of the spectrum, and next is like Jerry Seinfeld and whatnot. But at the other end of the spectrum, there's guy like Doug Stanhope or Jim Jeffries, and
right,
like
right.
and but those guys been in the game since the since I don't know the early 2000s. But but what would you say like? And one joke I wanted to bring up, that one my favorite joke from your special take note is the one voucher a year to slap a woman,
Oh, that's
which
crazy. I probably couldn't do that joke today, but go ahead, talk about it. Yeah.
yeah, I mean it was 2016 I think Take Note, when I first saw Take Note when they first came out, and
Yes, yes.
that was my favorite. But like the rest of the special compared to that, that's like the edgiest you got like that's the most taboo to say you
Right.
got. um of course, now with culture, and I don't think This isn't a. Don't take this as a shot, but I don't think we see what Kevin Hart's going through. I don't think you're like big enough to like survive getting canceled.
No, no. You know what though? Honestly, is you're absolutely right. I don't take it personal. I actually almost got canceled last year on about something else. It was crazy. I was in this movie, and I don't mind talking about it. I was in this movie called LaQuisha, right? And a friend of mine, he had this idea. It's a white guy, and the idea was he's a bartender. And, people go to bartenders for like counseling, kind of, right? When they can't afford, because bartenders, they talk to people. So he's this bartender who knows how to counsel people, and he wants to get a job at a radio station, but he pretends to be a black woman on radio though. He's not in blackface or anything. And I think he showed the movie, people liked the movie, but the trailer was not great. I think the trailer, people didn't understand what the movie was, and they lost it. They just lost it. And then people started coming at me like, how can you be in this movie? And there were plenty of black people in the movie. The whole thing for me was like, it's like if your parents tell you to do something and then you don't do it, but then someone else tells you to do the same thing and then you do it. To me, the movie was sort of studying that whole dynamic. Like, why do people listen to like black women because they think they're wise, especially older black women, but their spouse can tell them the same thing and they won't do it, And I think the movie explored that. And I think if people saw the movie, they would have been like, okay, it wasn't the greatest movie, but it was decent. But just seeing the trailer, they tried to cancel the movie, and they almost canceled me. And I think that's the sad thing about cancel culture, and that's another thing comedians have to deal with now. Because, like you said, that joke could possibly get me canceled, except it could only get me canceled if you only saw a bit of that joke without watching the whole special to catch the whole vibe, how I got into the joke. But people don't care anymore, right? So I know that's something in the back of my mind. If I do get like more famous, people might come at me about that joke. But at the same time, you know, like Louis C.K. has said the N-word on stage. So it's weird. People kind of get selective about who they want to cancel. Right now, I'm glad it's not coming back to haunt me, because people at the show laughed. You laughed when you saw it, but you definitely got to watch the whole thing to catch my vibe. If you just take that one joke out, people might be like, "This guy's a maniac." You know what I mean? Um, but yeah, that's it. I'm not super edgy, but I try to be truthful, and I thought that joke was truthful in a way, and just kind of playing a little bit, not like really wanting that to happen. You know what I mean? The
I
voucher.
think just to like we just like to give more context. The purpose of the joke was like to like the voucher is like a proposed solution, like exaggerated, of course, but a proposed solution to it's not. And you also said it. You're trying to like I'm not promoting domestic violence. It's not for your. It's
Right,
for women in the streets who are the reason why men. Well, I'm paraphrasing. Women in the street who are the reason why men get into fights.
right, right. It was like you can't use it. The thing was a voucher to slap, and I think if I did it today, I would say just slap anyone, because I think that's how I would fix it. But it was to slap, you slap a woman once a year, not your wife, not your girlfriend. And then I gave examples, and I think once I gave the examples of like when you would use it, people were like, "Oh yeah, that girl did deserve to get slapped." And then I think when I bring it back at the end of the joke, and I want people to see the joke. I'm not really doing it. When I say, so if you're a girl out there, I'm really clear, right? I say most women would never get slapped, never. We don't want to do it. But if you're a girl out there and say in 1 month, you three
Two
different
guys.
guys use their voucher on you, they only get one of these a year and they all use it on you, and it's January 3rd, then you've got to
And
ask
then,
yourself some
of
questions.
course, a dark day is December 31st because the vouchers don't roll over.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's tough because people take things out of context, right? Like, it's so interesting to use that word. You want to put the joke in context for people listening who haven't heard the joke. And I think people don't seek context anymore. And so They hear something and they instantly get mad. But it's kind of like, it's like when someone tells you a story about someone else and you weren't there, right? And they're like, "Can you believe that person did that?" And you got to be like, "Well, I don't know. I got to hear their side of it because you're kind of making it look like you're the hero and they're the villain. But maybe if I talk to them, they would say they were the hero and you were the villain." And I've been watching The Purge on TV, like the movies, the TV show. It's similar to that joke in a sense. I never thought about that, but it's like, it's weird. I think we're trying to have more humanity, and that's why we're canceling people. But the way we're doing it is like with people are bullies, and it's like less humanity at the end of the day. Um, it's just weird. I think like when I grew up, everyone wanted to be strong, right? And maybe that was wrong, but everyone wanted to be. You didn't admit whatever your flaws were. Now everybody wants to be the victim. So the whole cancel thing is like everybody feels like they're oppressed. Everybody, and it's just a weird.
Not only that, they get offended for other people who otherwise wouldn't be offended.
That's 100% right, 1,000% right. Like in stand up, if you go to like in clubs, it's like an ongoing joke. If a black guy's on stage, or especially if a white guy's on stage, and he does a joke about black people, you know, and it could be like an innocent joke, that you could always see like the white people in the room will look to see where the other black people are, and if the black people are laughing, then they'll laugh, you know. But that's how it should be, right? Like if they're laughing, then I guess I can laugh. But nowadays, people they don't care if they're laughing. They're like, I'm offended. I'm gonna be offended for them. And like, well, shouldn't you ask them first if they're offended? You know. So
Yeah. Not only that, I do want to bring up and take in your special take note. Uh, this might be me being having my OCD acting up. I counted your F. You dropped 5 F bombs. And I know because I counted.
right. And what's crazy is that I didn't even mean to drop that many. Like obviously, dry bar, I dropped none because
It's
that's a
dry bar.
clean. Yeah, it's a clean thing. And I think I would say two of those F bombs were planned, and then two of them, the other three were not planned. So that's a little high. Like
We're
I
just in
wouldn't
the
want.
moment.
Yeah, just in a moment. And because I take two shows that night, and most of the special is from the second show, and both shows went really well. But I think first show went well, we got it. But I think the second show I wanted to like make sure, and also a lot of the audience was half and half. Like I not half, but I probably knew personally because we had a small space. So I probably personally knew 20% of the people in the audience. So I think I felt a little more relaxed with them. So it was kind of like talking to friends, kind of, and that's why that happened. Um, but yeah, I think it's one of those things where if you're gonna have 5 F bombs, then you might as well have none. You know, the only joke that needed the F bomb kinda was the name joke because the guy is supposed to say, and is this a clean thing here too, or
No, it's not. You can say
oh,
whatever
okay,
you
okay,
want.
right? Because the guy is supposed to say when he says the name, and I have a whole joke about we shouldn't allow people to name kids whatever,
Yeah.
and he says
My
that's why the fuck I work here. That's the only F bomb that I think I need. The other ones I shouldn't have done. Yeah.
Yeah, that hit close to home for me because my name is Zuriel, and oh my god,
Right, right.
childhood was not easy for me. Um, but you
But
know
it,
that.
but I did a
But
short. Let me cut you off. I did a short version of that joke. Is your name common somewhere else, even though it's not common here?
nah,
Uh,
no. No. I've been,
right.
bro. Like my name is like so weird. Like they've been calling me cereal so much in elementary school that they got so they called it so much that they got tired by 5th grade that they just like,
Right.
let's just try to pronounce his name. It's like it got so bad that they started to feel bad for me. That's how you
That's
know.
crazy,
That's how
dude.
you know it's get then kids are being too rough when they like start like just give up on bully when bullies start to feel bad for you.
Right, right. Well, also you probably took it the right way because once it stops bothering you, then people are gonna stop doing it.
Like Fruit Loops, no, I prefer Apple Jacks.
Right,
But
right.
yeah, going back to cancel culture, and what I really want to bring up is, some people for some reason survive cancel culture, or like survive, like, like you brought up Louis CK, um
Mhm.
doing, he said the N word on many occasions that
Yeah,
I
and
can
he
think
and
of.
he had that other situation where he was, with
Yeah,
that
well, the one
he got
well,
me he got me to it as well. Yeah.
he got me too, but he did, which now I think, the those past jokes he made aren't gonna help his case. But not only Louis C.K. Robert Downey Jr. did blackface in Tropic Thunder. Um, ACDC dropped an album last month.
Hmm.
Uh, but and I listened to old ACDC songs. And I'm listening to Back in Black again, and it was like this song "Let Me Put My Love Into You," which it's kind of suspect, kind of rapey, a little bit.
Right, right,
And I was like, oh boy, like I'm just hoping, like, are these guys like? It's at the point, like, are these guys next? Are these guys gonna be? Are we gonna really pull? Because they're going back. They're going back. They went back to like Hugh Hefner on John Wayne. People who are dead already. I was like, ACDC just dropped an album. How long before what they did back in 1980, or much worse during the Bon Scott era, where Bon Scott was dressed as a schoolgirl. Where will that come back to haunt them? And Bon Scott's been dead
right.
since 1980, and
That's
but
crazy. You know your classic rock. Um, I like classic rock too, but the thing is, like, I want to say too that I personally didn't have a problem with Louis C.K. saying the N word. Like, it doesn't bother me. Like, it's in terms of the context he was saying it as a comedian. It's hard to pull off. If he can make the audience okay with it, then I don't have a problem with it. But you're right in terms of how far we're going to go back. I think the problem becomes that some people are really trying to correct the right, correct the wrong, and you really can't unless you have a time machine, right? But also, some people aren't. Some people are trying to, like, it's monetarily, they're trying to get more money. So if you cancel John Wayne, right, then you know on a weekend on TNT or the History Channel or whatever, now they're not showing John Wayne movies. So they're going to show somebody else's movie, and someone else is going to get that residual check or whatever. So some of this canceling is financially motivated. I think people have to keep that in mind before they jump up about everything. And the other thing is, I was thinking it's not a flushed out joke, but I was like, pretty soon they're going to cancel someone and be like, "Did you hear about that guy? He ate his twin in the womb. Oh, that guy's a dick." Like, how far back?
uh,
How far back? And
yeah, that was Marshawn Lynch. But
yeah, right. Hopefully, it's just a phase, and we'll get out of this phase. Because I think what happens is there'll be a backlash to this, and so I think there'll be a backlash. But it's internet driven too, right? Because the internet is like a wave, and then some people see it, and then some people see it later, and so it's hard to. And then if it gets like viral, you can get like canceled virally. Like, everyone just gets on that. That's what happened to Bill Cosby, right? People just got on this flow, and they canceled them. And I don't know. I think people need to feel like they're doing good in the world. But for me, if I'm taking care of my brothers and sisters, my biological brothers and sisters, then I'm doing good in the world. Like, I don't need to like fix every wrong that ever happened, you know?
yeah, and another thing, like people who I brought up, guys like Doug Stanhope and Jim Jeffries. These guys have been like over the top, like super taboo since the beginning of their careers. Doug
Right.
Stanhope described himself as like, I'm not mainstream comedy, I'm more like fetish comedy. I don't
Right.
have a big fan base, but the fan base I do have will drive miles to see what I do. And it was like, guy like Jim Jeffries, like, been I don't know if you ever seen a stand up, but it's like so over the top. People walking out of his shows, just him getting drunk on
Right.
stage and all that. And he got a TV show for 3 years.
Yeah, Jim Jeffries is interesting to me because I don't know him. I haven't met him, but I've been to Australia like 2 times now. But like 2 times, but like for a month each time, right? So I haven't been to everywhere, but I've been to Sydney a lot, and I've been to the Gold Coast a lot, and Brisbane a lot. I kind of want to meet him only because what's weird about him is he's a really good comic. And I don't mean that in a bad light. I mean, structurally, if you look at his jokes, he writes his jokes with no fat on him. Maybe, maybe not when he's at a club, when he's just riffing and working out, but when he tapes his specials, I know they're edgy and he talks about different things. But to me, it's not edgy only because he's so succinct and so I don't think whenever you're good at something, you don't get credit for the other thing that you're good at. And I think as a person, as an artist, you have to be okay with that. Meaning Michael Jordan was incredible at shooting, incredible at defense, but people are obviously always going to go to the jumping. You know, Dan Cook is incredible at act outs, but he's a really good writer too. But people are not going to focus on that. I think Jim Jeffries is a better writer than people give him credit, and Doug Stanhope. Like these guys, and I think that's what the newer comics have to understand is these guys have their angle, they have their thing, their hook, but don't get it twisted. They are really solid comics. They've done before this. They've done every type of room. I'd imagine that early in his career, Doug Stanhope probably did regular clubs. He may have even done corporates. And, then he got really good and then he could do what he wanted to do after that. So I think my takeaway from these guys is they're really good comics. And I think every comic should aspire to be really good because some people try to skip that step. Like they just want to like have a voice, but usually you have to get funny before you have a voice. You have to learn how to put the words together and then have a voice. The acceptance I would say is like Chris Rock. I think he had his voice first, but then he had to learn how to be funny within that voice. But most people just be funny, whatever you can say that's funny, and then later on, express yourself in the way you want to. But first, just be funny.
And like and a lot of people don't seem to appreciate, at least a lot of people outside of comedy. If you go into comedy, like there's comedians who love other comedians. Like someone like Norm Macdonald. He's they call him a comedian's comedian.
Right.
One of my favorite comedians of all time is Bill Hicks. Bill Hicks is
Nice.
like, I think he's one of the greatest ever. He's one of my top three probably. I
Right.
put
Are
him up
you
there.
are you in Texas? Are
I'm,
you
in,
in
I'm
Texas?
Yeah, I'm from Houston, Texas. I live in Brenham now while I'm going to
Oh,
college.
okay, okay. Because he's cool. Yes.
But I was born in 2001, so there
Whoa,
was.
that's crazy.
I know it must sound weird coming from me. I was born in 2001, but I found like I discovered Bill Hicks through social media, which is weird.
Mhm.
But what made Bill Hicks so great, he didn't have a huge following when he was alive. His huge following,
Right,
but uh, what made him so great was that he was so ahead of his time that it was like not mainstream. It was like too taboo. Like uh the set that was cut out of the David Letterman show that
right,
didn't air until 2009, and it was like this was like so taboo back then, but like today is like pure comedy. Is like it's
right,
it was like a magnificent set. And like and here's how ahead of his time Bill Hicks was back in his special Sane Man, which is my favorite, one of my favorite out of all of his. Had his joke. He started joking about rock stars. He had a joke about rock stars, and how drugs. The war on drugs is bogus. And he says like if that is so bogus, how come Keith Richards is still walks? And this is 1989. I have to remind you. Uh, he had a whole set about how Keith Richards outlived, a health nut, Jim Fixx, who wrote books about jogging. And
Right.
Bill Hicks passed away in 1994. Today is 2020, and Keith Richards is still alive. Like, oh my
That's
god.
it's crazy. And if I don't know if I assume Keith Richards still does some level of drugs. Once you get to that level, you got to keep doing the drugs. And like if he stops doing drugs, he'll die the next week. Like his body's just sort of adjusted to it, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's I think Bill Hicks and but like he's a good example. So far ahead of his time, but a really funny comic. I think when people see a Bill Hicks, if as a young comic you want to be Bill Hicks, and that's great. He's something you should aspire to, but you can't be Bill Hicks like right out the gate. You know what I mean? Like even in the back of your mind, I want to be Bill Hicks, and that's the beauty about when I came up is that say you want to be Bill Hicks or you whoever you Lenny Bruce, Richard Pryor, George Carlin, the people you thought were like the greatest comics. Um, in my day, when I was in Boston, I would do shows in the city of Boston, and Boston's kind of metropolitan. It's not New York, but you can be experimental. You can go to Cambridge, which is very liberal, and do whatever you want. But then you have to go to like a bar in New Hampshire, and the people aren't so smart there. Not smart, I shouldn't say that. God forgive me. Not smart in terms of they're brilliant. They're not looking for that type of comedy. Like they're looking for just laughs. And so as you become well rounded, like I think nowadays comics only do the type of rooms they want to do, which is kind of cool because you can build your audience. But when I came up, you had to do all types of different rooms, and that just made you. It kind of like it's good and bad because it makes you good, makes you funny, it makes you you learn how to like weave the jokes and everything. But you do write jokes that are more universal. And nowadays people think that's bad. But when I came up, you wanted to make everyone laugh. And now if you make everyone laugh, people feel like you're being a little too vanilla. So I don't know what the answer is. Do you find your little audience like Doug Stanhope? But I think, or are you universal? I think in the beginning though, it's good to try to be universal. I tell people like if you see a Picasso painting and the eye is over here and the nose is over there, and it's like, oh, this is amazing. But Picasso could also paint a bowl of fruit. He could paint a landscape. He learned how to do all those basic paintings first. And then he started putting the nose over here and the cubic realism. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So in all these cases, like when I don't know if you know alt comedy, when the alternative comedy thing started, it was people like David Cross. You could even put Stanhope in that. Janine Garofalo, but these people, they started their own little movement, but they also did the mainstream rooms, where it's just a couple and they get a babysitter that night. You know what I mean? So like the average club and anywhere in the country, they're not really looking for like a social lesson or anything. They just want to laugh, you know?
Yeah. And like I brought up, and I think it's what makes you so easy to cancel is that you're broad at the beginning, but then when like you narrow down, it's too taboo for like the people you excluded. Which
Right.
that's like I said, like if you're Doug Stanhope from the beginning, like edgy, like just nasty with your comedy, and you just go straight out, like these people were never a part of your base. But once like you start broad, you then you narrow down a little bit. These people now feel excluded. Like that happened to Sebastian Maniscalco at the
Mm.
at some music awards he hosted.
Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't hear about that. That's a brilliant point you say because, and that's what the internet does. Is that when I first started, you're right. You can be broad, but when I first started, you were broad, but not that many people knew you yet. And so maybe you're right. Like now, your first 3 or 4 years in comedy, you might be known more than when I was doing it. No one knew you until you did like a late night spot, and then a few people knew you. And then you did another late night spot, then a few people knew you. So you're absolutely right. Because with the dry bar, I have more fans from dry bar really than anything else, because I don't know, the clean comedy audience is so supportive, and so like my clips on Dry Bar gets millions of hits, and so yeah, if those people come and see me, they don't want to see me cursing or doing super taboo stuff. So you're absolutely right about that. It's who else suffers from that is the guy from Full House. Um,
Bob
I don't know why
Saget.
I can't. Bob Saget, yeah, because
Oh yeah.
he's filthy. His comedy is filthy, and people are coming and thinking they're seeing the Full House guy. And so
Yeah.
you're right. And I don't you know I mean you kind of turned my mind around a little bit, because you're right about that. Like it's but at the same time, at some point you might lose a few fans. Hopefully you don't, because I don't have a desire to be too dark. But yeah, like that joke, people would be like, whoa, you know. But that's when you're doing a longer set, when you're doing like 30, 40, 45 minutes, hour, you can get people relaxed and then hit them with the whatever, you know what I mean? So that's kind of how I do it too. And I think I'm at a crossroad, because I want to do another special, and I want it to be truthful. I want it to be silly. I can make it more biting, but I'm just not sure like how to calibrate it.
So, with the Dwayne Perkins reinvention, like if you had to reinvent yourself, would that be out of the question? Like Bob Saget had, like I don't know if Bob Saget was always filthy and just did Full House for that time span, then went back to being a filthy comic, or if he just did Full
Right.
House, was clean up until then. I heard he hosted some shows when he was young, and then reinvented himself because he wanted to do more like filthy material. But
Yeah, I think I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah,
Yeah.
the question I wanted to ask you, like, how would a Dwayne Perkins reinvention like go? How would you reinvent yourself if that was an option? If not, you could just keep doing what you're doing and have your fan base grow as it is.
Right, right. That's a brilliant question. I think that I wouldn't change that much. It's weird because in my mind, I wouldn't change much, but because of cancel culture, people might react like I changed a lot. I think I would just challenge people a little bit more. Um, so I would be still fairly clean, but I would just challenge societal norms. And for me, my comedy always, I don't go after society. I go after people, because I think people make up society. So I think I would. The thing about it is like I know how to say things without being offensive, which is a gift and a curse. Because I think it's so interesting that you mentioned that joke, because when people see me, they don't think I can have a joke like that. That outrageous. But a lot of my stuff,
And
some of it
I
is
don't think
outrageous.
I don't think it helped your case for your special. You wore a sweater or like that.
Right, right, exactly. But that's the
Oh,
thing.
look, he looks nice. He
You
looks
want to
very presentable.
relax, right? You want to relax them and then hit them with the truth. And it didn't help that Bill Cosby got into his situation, because that kind of made sweaters,
Ugh,
because
yeah.
they were like, we trusted people in sweaters. Now we can't trust people in sweaters anymore. But I think in terms of how would I change, yeah, just be a little more biting, a little more like I mean, like I'm like what you see is who I am. But I think, yeah, I can challenge people a little bit more. Um, I think I'm not sure if people would take to it, but I think it's tough, because when you're doing it as long as I can write a joke, and I can just change a few things and make it completely acceptable to the masses. It's really the same jokes. It's just a matter of, am I leaving out just one or two things that I could say to put it over the top? And I think if I was going to rewrite myself right now, like sort of redefine myself, mainly I'd be silly, but also a little more biting, but not in the Bill Hicks way, just more in like, I'm not taking down the man, I'm not taking down the system, but I always want to challenge people and call people on their stuff, because I think we always try to like look up here when we got to look here. Like it's about what you do. So
Yeah.
that's my main thing.
Yeah, like one thing I want to bring up, like when I went on whenever I hit the stage is like, We heard the girl who finally played for Division 1 Power 5 football team as a kicker.
Oh yeah, she kicked. Yeah,
Yeah, she
yeah.
kicked, uh, and everyone's like, yeah, we they made history, and like I want to bring up, it kind of sucked. The kick kind of sucked a little bit, and
Right.
and the I don't want to. Of course, it's history, and I hope I do believe she will get better. She's a soccer player at that school, and she might get be she if she works on it, she'll get better one day. But that same day, a dude ran for 400 plus yards and scored 8 touchdowns, and no one paid them any mind because we were all focused on this girl shooting a squib kick.
Right,
But
right. That's great. And I think and the thing is, can you say that without people getting mad? That's the job of the comedian, right? Is to like, because like when you think of the emperor's clothes and the emperor's naked and he's going through the town and everyone's pretending that he has clothes on, the person that's going to say the emperor is naked is either going to be a kid, a child, or a comedian, you know? And I think that's a great point that you say. And it's just a matter of, it's really interesting. I like what you're saying about just be that bold from the beginning. But the other thing I was going to say is when you talk about redefining yourself with anything like that, the issue of money does come in play.
oh yeah,
And I think once you are financially like flush and you're stable, then you can be like, you know what, I want to do this, and it doesn't matter anymore. You know what I mean? I wouldn't say I'm quite at that point, but I'm getting there because I'm decent with money. So like but I wouldn't change drastically, but it would be nice to be in a position where, okay, I want to do this joke. I might lose a few fans. Hopefully they'll come back, but that's okay.
yeah. One of
You
my
know?
favorite comedians is Patrice O'Neal, just for his crowd work, because he was just a funny guy that got on stage, and he was brutally funny. He like honest, like, and I read stories about how he like sabotage his own opportunities just to have a laugh. Uh, and speaking on
Oh
that,
yeah.
in this industry, unexpectedly, there's like a lot of deaths, like like in rock, like old rock stars. You know how they die young from like whether it be overdoses or living that rock star lifestyle, it catches up to them and they pass away at a young age. In comedy, we hear that. We hear that as well, but we're not living that that fast lifestyle. We're not trashing hotel rooms. You hear names like Lenny Bruce, Bill Hicks, Sam Kinison. Who Sam Kinison, you could say he lived the rock star lifestyle, but Greg Giraldo, Patrice O'Neal, Ralphie May, guys who left far before their time. And like, what would you say like it leads to us? Comedy. Like I think comedy is a art of broken men who and like maybe that's why like so well what do you think that's attributed to that a lot of comedians we go through like this much pain and most of us don't make it to old age.
Right. I think a lot of it is it's a combination. Is childhood. Sometimes it's dysfunction in a childhood, but also when you see the world a certain way and everyone else doesn't, you know, I think it can wear on you. Like for you, it's a small thing, but for you seeing that girl and she kicks and it's great, that's amazing that she can kick and be on a football team with men. And then this other guy scores 4 touchdowns and no one says anything.
8.
The comedian's brain is like, we're always fighting programming. Everyone else they're very susceptible to being programmed. This is good. This is bad. This is, you know what I mean? But you and our brains are like, wait, why is this good? Why is this bad? And so, you kind of living a whole life with dissonance, with that little like, and that can wear on you because it's like a Matrix and you took the other pill. You took the pill that keeps you woke. While that's good, the bad thing is that now you see what's messed up. You're not, they say ignorance is bliss. And so you don't have that bliss anymore. So I think that's part of it. I think that mixed with, some sort of dysfunction in the childhood or need for approval. it puts some comics in that, you know, in that track where they're just not happy, you know, or they're happy but not at, yeah, I could say not happy. Also, we keep late hours, so you know, nothing good happens after midnight, they say. So, you know, you do a show, you're up late, you know, just bad things can happen. So it's a combination of all those things. But I made, me personally, I was talking to my friend, and I knew Patrice. He was a good friend of mine. That was my guy for sure. But I remember me and Gary Goldman were talking once, and we were talking about like Richard Pryor and how great he is. And Gary's my dude. Like we came up together in Boston. Like that's my guy, right? And we were just saying how it's weird. We came to Hollywood at the same time, and we both just said we'd rather not be Richard Pryor and live longer. You know, not that that's the option. Not that like you can be Richard Pryor and live long, but if being as good as Richard Pryor means you have to live that life and suffer that pain, then me personally, I don't need to be as good as Richard Pryor. Some people might think that's not great, but I have a family, you know, not children, but I have a family that loves me, and you know what I mean. Like the rock star life is cool, but I'd rather be here than not be here and be celebrated. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sometimes we have to face that choice. This is a strange world we live in. Uh, I don't know if I should say this, but Magic Johnson outlived Kobe Bryant.
No, it's all good.
And Magic
Mhm.
Johnson outlived Kobe Bryant. When we thought Magic Johnson was gonna die
Right, right.
back in 90, I don't know what it was, 92. eh, You know,
Yeah,
Greg Giraldo passed away. After he sobered up, and he passed away from prescription meds. And Charlie Sheen is still kicking. It's
say
a
that again. The last thing I didn't hear.
hmm?
I
Sorry.
didn't hear the last thing you said. I'm sorry.
The last. Oh yeah.
I didn't hear the last thing. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Like I brought up. Greg Giraldo sobered up. Towards the end of his life, and passed away, and still passed away from prescription meds. And we is a guy like Charlie Sheen is still kicking. Also bringing back up the Keith Richards thing, who's still alive today.
Right, right.
Guys like Keith Richards, Ozzie Newsome. So life is like, just life is strange. You never know
Oh yeah,
when
they
you're.
absolutely. They say man makes plans and God laughs, right? So, uh, you know, and that's the crazy thing. I mean, but I think that's the reason why some people live hard lives, because they know it can all be gone in a second, you know. So it's like that, finding that balance, because you can live a straight life, never touch anything, no drugs, no nothing, and get hit by a bus. Like this is just what happens sometimes. So, but that's where comedy comes in too. So let's celebrate and make fun of everything, because let's not take ourselves that seriously at the end of the day, you know. And I think it's becoming harder to do that with cancel culture. But you know, like I think if you, I don't know if you say it on stage, but if you say what you said about that kicker, who can disagree with that? Like, and that's the thing, when comedy, when it hits the right way and it's funny, people, they can't get offended because they laugh first. You know what I mean? And I think that's kind of what we should be doing, you know, making them laugh before they get offended. Yeah.
Yeah, Dwayne, thank you so much for coming on. I'm really getting ready to wrap this up. We had a lot of great conversation. I want to thank you again for coming on here. Helping helping my podcast grow. Uh, you know, just trying to get this started. I started this podcast from the beginning because I wanted to be a comedian. And this was during COVID. No, nothing was open. Had nowhere to do. Start doing stand up. So
Mm.
and it's great that to have you on here. As the first comedian I could get on. So I really appreciate that. Anything you want to say before we wrap this up?
Just thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, if people want to check out I'm Dwayne Perkins on Instagram. I have two books on Amazon, one called Zombie Run, one called Hot Chocolate for the Mind. And listen to this podcast. And yeah, I had a lot of fun. Thank you, man.
All right, Dwayne Perkins, ladies and gentlemen.